Greetings, folks. Today I'm going to walk you through how you can put your data that you have from your results of a survey or maybe some test scores, something to that effect, but data that you have that you'd like to input into SPSS. And there are a few different ways to do this, but we are going to be bringing ours in, typing in our own data. So you want to obviously know what data you're working with, and as you can see here, there I have the first variable is grade level. They've got about 25 participants. My first variable is grade level, the age of the participant, the gender of the participant, a pre-test score, a post-test score. They had to recall some words, and they were given a list of words, and then they were asked to recall them after a 1-minute break, or after 1 minute of studying the words. And this group was after 3 minutes of studying the words, and then after 5 minutes of studying the words. And how many words could they recall? And the group color, this was just the students were randomly assigned to a group when they started the class. So here's our data, and we want to bring this into SPSS. So a lot of times when we have SPSS, we open up maybe we'll see the little symbol, something as a save file that's already been saved in SPSS. In this case, we're going to open this up, and it's instead of going to a save file, we want to get this from our Excel. We can also open up an Excel file. I find that at times, until you're a little bit more comfortable with SPSS, this can be a little tricky. But we can type in our data. And this is a great way just to understand the program and get to learn the program and get to know the program. So I'm going to click over here. I clicked on the type in the data, and I'm going to hit OK. And now it's giving me this blank slate. So with SPSS, we have two different views. We have our variable view, which is what we're looking at right now, and then we also have our data view. And like the words sort of insinuate, our data view is exactly that, our data. That was pretty much exactly what we were looking at on the Excel spreadsheet. And then the variable view runs crossways. This number 1 is going to be one entire variable. So let me bring our data in, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go back to my Excel spreadsheet, and I'm actually going to copy and paste everything, but not the top row. I don't want to copy these. This will throw off, it will throw SPSS into a little tizzy. So I don't want to copy my labels. I just want to copy my data. I'm going to right click. I'm going to copy. I will go back to SPSS. I am in my data view, and I'm going to go right up to the first box there, and I'm going to hit paste. Now my data is in, and these labels, because this isn't Excel, the labels are not here. I do need to put them in. I need to do what I kind of call cleaning up my data. So I'm going to go into the variable view. And if you recall, the first thing we had was grade level. Now SPSS will not let me have a space. In this first column under name, my name cannot have a space in it. So if I hit enter, it's going to beep at me and tell me that there's an illegal character. So I'm going to call it grade level, and I made it a little bit shorter. This name is not something that anyone will see except for me, the researcher that's working with this data. Over here in the label, this is the label that would be if I were to run some analysis and it was to spit out some reports. This label is what it would show, and that's where I want to have it looking nice, space, proper capitalization, proper spelling, things like that. Over in this name column here, as long as I know what it means, I can call it pretty much anything I would like. So let's go back to our SPS, our Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to put these two side by side here so I can remember what my columns were. My next variable was age. My next variable is gender. And even though they are going across on my Excel spreadsheet, on this one in the variable view, they're going down. If I'm looking at the data view, you can see grade level, age, gender. So this is matching our data that we see in Excel. This is pretty much very similar to an Excel spreadsheet, although you don't do individual cell calculations. But the variable view is talking about each variable. So this grade level, all of this has to do with the grade level. Let me continue and get this stuff in real quickly. The next thing is, for some reason, SPSS will not allow you to start the name of a variable with an actual number or numerical digit. So I'm going to call this minute 1, minute 3, and minute 5. And I'll just say groups. So we can go into our labels first thing. Now I've gotten everything in that I need. Now I want to make my data a little bit prettier. I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to put age over here, gender, pretest, whoops, now over here I can start it with my number. And that's not quite right. And group. Alrighty, so I've got my names in and my labels in. You'll notice the next thing it says is type, and you'll see the words string and numeric. Interesting. Why is that? Well, if I go back and I look at my data view, I also notice that all the strings are consisting of letters and they're left aligned. So these are things that come in alphabetically. The numbers, or numeric, come in on the right side. Now, even if I were to align it differently on Excel, it would still naturally do this like Excel. When we type in Excel, the words left align and the numbers right align. This tells me this is how the data came in. I can go in and I can change these to numbers, but that's not the computer program. SPSS has already read them as alphabetical digits, and that's not the way you want to change it. We actually, and we learn this in other lessons, but when we go forward, we will turn this into an entirely new variable that is numbers. And freshmen might be 1, and seniors might be 4, juniors would be 3, sophomores would be 2. And we're going to create a variable from this variable that's numerical. This way SPSS can use it and work with it and manipulate it. But for now, we're going to leave that as is. But that's why it's string. This width column is 9 wide. And again, if we look at our data view, we can see that I believe it's sophomore is 9 letters. So it's 9 wide. If for some reason we needed to add something, we might have to play with the width. Usually SPSS reads that coming in and you don't have a problem with it. Decimal points. We have 0 decimal points, which is true for all string. And then as far as the others, the decimal points are chosen by the data that you've uploaded. You can change the data or the amount of decimal points depending upon how you want your data to look. This data right here, the ages, you'll notice are all full years, 18, 24, 23, 19. There's really nothing past the decimal point. So I like to go in there and again clean it up. Now I'm not going to go in and get rid of decimal points on scores where the decimal points matter, because that data that we have, that information that we have, is more specific and I don't want to take away from that. But I can definitely get rid of it on how many words, these are whole numbers, how many words people recalled. So I can go back and I can look at my decimal points for the minutes and make that a 0. You kind of have to think through some of this. It's nothing that you can memorize. You have to look at it and say, does this benefit me to have the decimal points? Does it not benefit me to have the decimal points? If information exists within those decimal points, then it's probably a benefit to keep it, such as the pretest and post-test. The data did carry into those decimal points. If it doesn't, it gets kind of messy to just have a bunch of zeros all over the place. So you want to use your critical thinking as you're doing this. There's not one rule for every choice you make. So let's stick again with grade level. We'll go back up here. We've kind of worked on width that's taken care of itself. Decimal points are cleaned up. Labels are cleaned up. And we're going to keep going over here. And this is crucial. Right over here we have our measure. And this is very, very important. So for string variables, SPSS recognizes that they're most likely nominal. That's not always the case. I think sometimes they could probably definitely be ordinal though. So you still have to check it. Unknown, not going to work. We need to go in and we need to pick whether something is nominal, ordinal, or scale. And scale would be for either interval or ratio data. Age, of course, is scale. Gender, male and female, that would be nominal. Pretest would be scale because it was on a scale using traditional numbers. And our minutes are all scale. And group. I do not have an ordinal variable in this data set. But if it were, oh, I'm sorry. Grade level could actually be ordinal. See? The professor's in. Okay. Grade level would be ordinal because freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors do follow a sense of order. So I'm going to change that to ordinal. Really, at this point, I'm not even going to address this column. I must say I most often don't address that column at all. So our next big thing that we are going to do is we're going to change one of these variables. Look at, isn't that nicer with those whole numbers? I love that. I love that so much. Instead of the zeros where they're not needed. So I'm going to take this one, group, and I'm going to create numeric values for these. And I'm going to do so by going into Analyze. Going into Transform. I just bounce around. I can't bounce and talk at the same time. I'm going to go into Transform, and I have the option of recoding into the same variable or recoding into the different variable. If I recode into the same variable, it's going to actually take these words, which are green, blue, and yellow, excuse me, it's going to take these words, it's going to get rid of them, it's going to replace them with a numeric value for each of these. And you know what? That is great. I understand why some people are tempted to do this. I will say in my 10, 12 years of working with SPSS, I still don't like doing this. I'm uncomfortable with that. If you replace it, you mess something up by any chance, you've lost your original data. So I do not do that. I always recode into a different variable, and it's going to give me a new variable right here. It's the same thing, but it's just kind of like keeping that original. So I personally always recode into a different variable. And it's asking me what my input and what my output is. So I want to recode, if you recall, the group variable. I have now, currently, one variable called group. So I cannot call a second variable group, but I can, just to remind myself, I'm going to put group and then the number sign. So for anyone over the age of 20, we call that the number sign. For all of you youngsters that call it a hashtag, I'm putting it there because that did stand for a number sign, the pound sign, the number sign, and that lets me know that that variable is numeric. So that's why I do that. But you come up with your own understanding of your data and how you label it. But for my label, it just has to be group again. And I'm going to change that. Now it's going to ask me what my old values are and what my new values are. So if I go in here and it wants to know what my old value is, I can see I have green, and I'm going to call green 1. And I have blue, and I'm going to call that 2. And I have yellow, and I am going to call that 3. Now I've done something on purpose that I'm going to show you. So the output box is going to open up, and it's just letting me know what I just did, that I turned green to 1, blue to 2, yellow to 3 into the variable group number, and I see the execute. That means it's been done. Great. I am excited. And oftentimes from this point, I have students that just start working and they go into Analyze and they start doing things with their data. Very, very, very important. I can't stress enough. Always, always go back and look at your data. So if I look at the variable view, I can see my variables here. Boom, boom, boom. Says it's nominal. It is still nominal. We have changed them into 1s, 2s, and 3s, but that's just a numeric representation. So it is still a nominal variable. That 1, that 2, that 3 is not evenly, there's not an even, it doesn't change the data. It just now SPSS is able to put mathematical practice to it. So I then want to look at my data view. Now, if you can notice, I have these little dots that appear. What does that mean? That means that this data for some reason wasn't transferred. And I'm looking and I go, that one's on blue. That one's on blue. That one's on blue. I notice here I only have 1s and 3s. I have no 2s, and none of the blues were captured. So this is where it gets way easier than you would think. I go back into recode into different variables, and because I just did it, it pulls up exactly what I just did. Yay! Alrighty, I go into my old and my new values, and I can see it's right there. I know I've done it, but if I look closely, blue, which is spelled correctly, is not capitalized. And when I look at my data, it is capitalized. SPSS is extremely specific whenever you are trying to manipulate or change data. So you need to, I just have to go back here, change this to a capital B, hit change, boom, now blue equals 2. You need to be very exact when you're renaming and recoding your data. Says it executed again. Let's go back and look. Boom, got it. Perfect. Now it's all been recoded. So you need to be really, really particular and specific when you are recoding. Oops, did not mean to do that. Okay. So what is the next thing that we want to do? We're getting all this cleaned up, but the one thing I wanted to do was show you about value labels. So I have now recoded my data into 1s, 2s, and 3s. My green, blue, and yellow. And I've checked my data. I've got it all here. It works. Everything is accounted for. But I have 1s, 2s, and 3s. So if I were to run statistical analysis, it's simply going to give me information about 1, or give me information about 2, or give me information about 3. And it's really not going to make much sense to me or possibly my readers. And although I'm quite capable, as I'm sure most of you are, of remembering that these are 1s, 2s, and 3s, when I'm working with a true data set that has maybe 30 questions and 600 people, and it's a lot less clean as 25 and one variable I'm dealing with, I might have many more variables, we don't often remember what 1 stands for or 2 stands for. So it's really important that we give them back the name. So I'm going to go in here to my value labels, and whoops, that went a little bit fast. See that little blue button here with the 3 little dots? If I click on that, it will open up. And now we're going to do this backwards. And what I kind of talk myself through this, I have to think what's already there. What's already there is the 1, the 2, and the 3. So the value is 1. If the value is 1, what do I want my label to be? I want my label to be green. And the value is 2. And I want my label to be blue. Whoops. And I want my label to be blue. And remember, I was telling you that we need to be so specific when we're changing or recoding something. Here, when we are labeling something, we don't need to be specific. What is happening is this 3 already exists. That part we need to be specific about. 3 is going to grab anything that's 3. When it comes to labeling within my value labels, or even within my labels of the variables, I can label it anything I want. So let's say I decided to call this bright yellow. Okay. When I go back and I look at my data, oh, that bright yellow does appear. And the reason why is because I'm telling it what to call it. I'm not asking it to pull it out. So this is the labels, these are the labels that I gave them. And if you're not sure, you want to go to this little button right here. See the 1 and the A? And click on that. Oh, I have my numbers. Oh, and I have my labels. Yay! And you can see that I have my decimal points, which I most definitely don't need. So I'll go over to my variable view, get rid of those extra decimal points. What a mess. Alrighty. Now I can do the same thing for gender. I can do the same thing for grade level. I can add numeric values to all of them. I can then turn around and add value labels. But this should get you started with what we need to do to get our data cleaned up, and hopefully this will be of some use or help to you. Have a good day. Thanks.